you'd be driving and it was like cars full of girls like chasing behind you and things and people screaming, and it was silly. It was embarrassing.
Man, I was so freaked out last night I went out and bought a pack. I haven't touched anything, man. I didn't even sleep last night.
It's a lot of weight, man. We gotta do something right now.
I know, man. Look, I was thinking maybe we could go bury it out on the beach.
Our show went from 0 viewership to worldwide smash within like a 2-week period of time.
But we have some details we have to work out.
I'm not moving to Portland, Dad.
At what point do you start making like serious money that can change your life?
We played it as every man for himself. So it wasn't the most lucrative, but what was lucrative was it was a 10-year job.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, David.
Oh, God, I'm sorry.
There were a few things that kind of delve into that a little bit that do really well. Like Taken, I feel like was very much that style. It was like, family man, father, guy who's older than you would expect as an action hero, who has to avenge something going on with his family and his family being wronged and find his daughter. And so yeah, this guy has a film like that that's pretty cool. So we're getting into it, and it's great for Sharna because she's never done it before. So it's exciting for her, and she's doing so well at it. I think people will be absolutely shocked when they see her.
Taken was such a moment in cinema.
Dude, it was such a moment.
And created so much after, too, that just followed like, oh, this is like a Taken.
Totally.
Which is so rare.
Yeah.
Are you watching anything now that you just love?
Not really. I don't watch much stuff. Like if there's anything that I watch regularly, it's like Last Week Tonight or The Daily Show.
Okay.
Or things on Shark Week or things like that. Like I'm not a huge
Did you ever do Shark Week?
No.
I did one episode.
Did you really? What'd you do?
My bit was that they gave me a camera because I always want to be a cameraman for...
Wait, you went shark diving with like bull sharks and tiger sharks and...
Scary.
You're out of your mind.
I never want to do it again.
You're out of your mind.
For the longest time, I thought I wanted to do it, but then once you get in the water and you're swimming above these sharks, no.
Well, so that's a whole nother thing too. Like scuba diving with sharks is completely different from snorkeling with sharks. Like I went scuba diving in, where was it? Bora Bora, I think. And at one point we were diving and we were swimming underneath snorkelers, and you look up and you see them floundering around on the surface of the water. And my first thought was like, oh, if I was a shark, I would absolutely eat those things that are splashing around.
Literally
right there.
Sitting target.
You look ridiculous. But then when you're scuba diving, you're kind of in their world. And so they swim past you and they're in their own thing. Like they really show very little interest in people. But if you're floundering around on the surface, that's, they catch a lot of their food on the surface, swimming. So it makes sense.
I would have pegged you for
this is all the ridiculous shark information.
Well, you have to watch it every year.
Dude, I can't help I was watching it last night. Like I can't help myself. When it's nighttime and I'm in bed, I'm like, ooh, Disney Plus. Okay, I'll go to the
Nat Geo.
The Nat Geo part of it. And then it's like, ooh, shark thing. And so I'm going through all the episodes and checking to see what I haven't seen. And what's funny is just last night I was saying to Sharna, I was like, it's unfortunate I've watched so many shark things that I kind of know everything they're talking about. So there's nothing that really catches me by surprise where I'm like, ooh, that's an interesting fact.
Right.
I never knew that. Like they start, studying why there have been shark bites on this coast and then what's going on and, what things are attracting shark. And it's like, I know all of this stuff. Like I could absolutely be a shark expert.
Do you remember Jeff Corwin?
Jeff?
There was like Steve Irwin and Jeff Corwin.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He just came over 2 days ago.
That's amazing.
He's doing
something. How was that?
So cool. So cool.
Did he bring animals with him?
I wish. No, but he's filming another show now in Santa Monica.
Okay.
So,
oh, really?
Yeah, but just getting to pick his brain because he was one of my childhood heroes about animals and sharks, and I love all that stuff.
Oh, my God. I haven't heard his name in a long time.
So cool.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So can we go back to the very beginning.
Dude, I see Wedding Band behind you on the shelf.
There it is.
Dude,
And we have
that's awesome.
90210 right behind you there.
Oh, that's so awesome.
So, I mean, when the show first came out, it was an hour
When
and a half.
90210?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a hour and a half pilot.
Something like that. Yeah, but that was during a time when all shows shot pilots, and they were like these mini movie presentations for the network and for people to watch and decide whether they liked it or not. So yeah, we shot. It was this massive thing, and I thought it was terrible.
The pilot.
The pilot. I mean, I had done probably 20 pilots up until that point in my career, because I'd already been in the business since I was 9, and I was 17 at that point.
Did you think the concept had life?
No, not really. Like I didn't understand that genre didn't exist. I mean, I had come from like nighttime soaps and stuff like that, but there were no teenage soaps. So I didn't really understand it. I didn't really get it. You know, I was like, okay, it's fun. Like it's us kind of doing what we do in school and what is in life. But I didn't have a concept of like, oh, this is going to make a good television show. I didn't know.
When it gets picked up, are you just mind blown that they want to do a full first season?
No, so we didn't get picked up for a full first season. We got picked up for 13 episodes. So during TV during that time was 22 episodes a season. So we got picked up for 13, and nobody watched it. Nobody. Like we would go and do pie eating competitions, and like we would just promote it wherever we could. Like we would go to the opening of mail. Like we were at, I was like standing at the end of somebody's driveway as they're opening their mailbox going, hey, have you heard about 9? And I couldn't even remember the name. It was Class of Beverly Hills at first. And then someone came up with the idea of we'll change it to 90210, which is the zip code for Beverly Hills. And I was like, who's going to remember a zip code? Like that's ridiculous. We're asking a lot of people. Like people already aren't watching this, let alone we're making the name more confusing for people to remember. So we did the 13, but because it was on Fox and Fox didn't have a lot of programming at the time, it wasn't a big major network at that point. It was a cable network. They picked us up for the back 9 because they were like, we have nothing else to put in its place. And so they picked us up for the back 9. And then Aaron Spelling had this really brilliant idea of us having summer episodes. So when all of the other shows that were on television were in rerun during the summer and kids were on summer break, we had brand new episodes to continue to show. And our show went from 0 viewership to worldwide smash within like a 2-week period of time. I remember like parking at gas stations to get gas and people going, oh my God, are you on that 90210 show? And I was like, yes. You watched it? You've seen it? And we were all shocked. We couldn't believe like how fast it took off because it was so slow to start. And I really felt like, okay, I've done these before. Like I've done pilots and stuff before. Like this is going to do just like the other ones did. We'll do a little bit of it and then we'll all say, hey, good working with you. It was fun. And then we'll go do, other stuff. So it was shocking.
It's so crazy they didn't put new shows on during the summer because that's when everybody's out of school.
So during that time though, there were only 3 networks. So the networks, the normal season was September to like June. And then during summer, everybody was outside playing. So the networks were like, oh, we'll just put stuff in rerun. And then the new season started kind of when you went back to school. Like it was around September, October, when the school year started.
So then after that summer, is that when it starts to set in like, okay, we're on to something?
I remember we did grad night at Disneyland. And that was the first real experience I had of, oh man, this show is massive. So they have a stage that comes up out of the ground over in the Tomorrowland Terrace area where it's all like the future stuff. They have a stage. It's like an elevator. It comes up out of the ground. And that we were there, and it was like Another Bad Creation was there, and Wilson Phillips were there. Like it was such a sign of the times. Like Wilson, and they were massive at the time. So they were out there before us, and we were down. There's a bunch of tunnels underneath Disneyland. It's sort of like the hidden, like nobody knows they exist, but it's this really cool like underground world. So we're down there waiting for the stage to come back down with Wilson Phillips so we can get on and we can go up and do our thing. So we start hearing the crowd. You can hear the crowd up above, and they're losing their minds. Like they're really screaming. And I'm thinking like, oh, okay, they're doing like an encore. They're doing a couple more songs. There's something going on. So we were all nervous because we were like, what are we doing here? Like, no, nobody's really watching this show. We're going to absolutely fail, and we're going to be like dummies up on this stage. So the stage comes down, Wilson Phillips get off, we get on the stage, and we have the bright idea of, hey, let's all hide. So when the stage comes up, nobody's on it, right? So like such kids. And we were thinking nobody's going to care that we're there anyway. So it doesn't matter. We're going to pop up. People are going to be like, who are these clowns up on the stage? So we were hiding, and the stage came up, and then we popped out, and it was an absolute sea of people. Like as far as you could see, Disneyland was just like a sardine can, just packed with people. And they were all losing their minds over the fact that we were on the stage. And it was one of those situations where like, no matter what you did, if you moved and like pulled your sleeves up on your shirt or, ran your fingers through your hair, people would react to it. And it was that moment of like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. Cause I'd only seen that with like New Kids on the Block up until that point. I saw news footage of them running out of shows and kids climbing up on chain link fences and screaming and, attacking the bus and all the stuff. All of a sudden we're seeing that with us. And it was really surreal. It was really strange. It was like, how did this happen for us? Like I was just watching them going through this stuff. It was crazy.
At what point are you unable to go out in public?
Not too long after that. It became really, really difficult to go out. It was a blessing and a curse because it was really difficult to go out. Yet when you chose to go out, I'd get the best table in the restaurant and they'd let me right in the club with all my friends. Like it was, it was carte blanche within the world once we were in it. But it was, you'd be driving and it was like cars full of girls like chasing behind you and things and people screaming and it was silly. It was embarrassing because it's like, it felt cool for a minute and then you just felt like, oh, this is like to walk into a restaurant and you hear girls like screaming. It was like, oh, this is so, I just want to eat. All I want to do is eat. I'm not asking for much. I want water and I want pasta and then I'm out of your hair. Like, I don't want to be here anymore.
Did you want to be part of a show like that had such ravishing fans?
I don't think I knew that it was even a possibility because there weren't any shows that were like that. Before us, there was like the Monkees, I think, were big. 8 is Enough was big. Like there were, the Brady Bunch was big. Like there were.
That's so different.
Yeah, there were a few shows kind of Leave It to Beaver. Like there were a few shows leading up to it.
Yeah. But
there wasn't anything within our decade or the decade prior. It was, you had the Jackson 5, I guess, before then. But it was kind of an unheard of thing. And it happened mostly in music, it seemed. It didn't really happen in television. Like it wasn't New Kids on the Block, like, and then up started popping all of the boy bands and all of the stuff. So it was like, that seemed like it was the main place where you would have such fans as we had.
Did the show ever get any backlash from tackling such topics? Because you guys dealt with real world issues and you were really the first of its kind.
I'm sure we did. Press wasn't the same back then. I mean, there was no internet
So people are just writing letters into the network
People
if they
were
like
writing
something.
letters. They were writing things in like their local paper, stuff that we never saw. And then every once in a while you'd hear about it like, oh, there was, in Florida, there was a big talk about the AIDS episode that you guys did. It was like, oh my God, get out of here. And then you talk to somebody and you'd be like, wow, I had no idea. Press wasn't the same. I mean, now it is instant. You do something and within 10 minutes, it's online. And everybody knows about it. It's all over social media. There's no way of getting away from it. Whereas back then, and I always say, like, it was, thank God it was the way that it was. Like when we were doing the show and we'd go to clubs, there were like 2 photographers out front. We knew their names. They were developing pictures like Peter Parker. Like they would go home, they would develop them, and then they'd sell them. And they'd be in a magazine like 2 weeks later.
So it was so past anything.
It was completely different. You'd come out of the club at the end of the night, and there'd be the 2 photographers, and they go, "Hey, can we get a couple pictures with you guys?" Oh, sure. We'd all pose, and we'd take a picture, and thanks a lot, good to see you, bro. I knew Roger, and like I knew all of the people that were there.
And there's boundaries. They're not asking. Wow.
They were super polite because they were at everything. So the last thing they wanted was for you to not like them, because then you wouldn't take pictures for them. Whereas now there are 150 guys that show up at places and they don't give a shit whether you like them or not. They just want to get their picture and sell it, Right. It's a business.
The other day you got caught walking out of Starbucks.
Oh my God.
How do they find out? Are they just camping out at certain spots?
So that's in Calabasas. So in Calabasas, they tend to patrol the area and look for cars that are familiar. They go, oh, that's Brian driving right there. So then they start following cars, which is why I think celebrities are starting to lease less noticeable cars.
In terms of the all black Escalade, or
they're doing that, but it's like if there are 50 all black Escalades in the city. Right. If you're driving a purple Lamborghini, that might stand out a little. Oh,
Brian
the purple
on the back.
Lamborghini's out. Yeah, it must be. Yeah. So yeah, they kind of follow people around and they hang out in areas. Where I was, right down the street from me is right by the Calabasas Commons, where the Kardashians, they made that area famous. You've got Hidden Hills, you have the Oaks, you have all of these areas around. So a lot of people kind of filter down into, there's a grocery store there that a lot of people go to, the Starbucks there, the stuff. So,
are you always on alert?
I got caught. I normally don't go to places or I go at hours where I'm not worried. I mean, you saw in the video, like I hadn't even looked in the mirror that morning. Like I literally got up and I was like, I need
coffee.
Yeah.
You handle it like such a pro, like to be bombarded with such a question is crazy.
She was a bit relentless too. Like she
you answered it, but
she would not let up. Like, so then how do you feel about this? And I was like, I have no idea what, she was asking me questions like, is he known to cheat? And it's like, I don't know. I have no idea how to answer any of these things. And honestly, I just want the best for people in general. I want the best for my kids. I want the best for Megan. I want the best for Colson. I want the best in every situation. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what the best is. I don't know if that looks like people being separated, people being together, people living together, I have no, those questions I can't answer unless I am living at somebody's house with them. But just in general, like I want the best for people. I want people to shine. I want people to find their passion and the thing that brings them joy. And I want them to succeed at the things that they really feel passionate about doing.
It's such a difficult thing to navigate and then to do it in the public eye with people questioning and throwing in all that noise.
Yeah.
As you're growing up in the public eye, how did you really navigate such foreign territory? Because you're being judged constantly.
Yeah, my views of it all changed a lot throughout the years. I mean, I'm 51 now.
You look great.
Thank you. But I've been doing this for a long time. I've been acting since I was 9. I've been in SAG longer than my fiance's been alive. Like, I've been in this for a while. And I've gone through all of it. I've gone through like the not handling the criticism well and taking things personally and feeling attacked and judged by everyone and wanting to hide in a corner. And during the 90s when we were doing the show, I was so highly scrutinized because I was growing up. I was going through my most formidable years in front of 40 million people, worldwide. I mean, we were in 190 countries at the height of our show.
And you're also the youngest one in the cast, no?
The youngest one.
So you're hanging out with only older people who are further along in life.
Yeah. And there were a lot of times where cast members would go and do things, and I just wasn't of age. Like I couldn't go with them. They couldn't take me to certain places, It was like, so I would hear the stories and I was like envious. I was like, oh, that sounds like it was so much fun. That must have been amazing. And then it was just Tori and I like, okay, we'll go, So which is why I think Tori and I got as close as we did, because we had that in common. Like we're both the same age. Her birthday's in June, mine's in July. Born the same year, we're the same age.
Were you aware of each other before the show?
No, I wasn't aware of her at all. I was barely aware of her dad, Aaron Spelling, who's like one of the biggest names historically in television. I watched his shows. I watched Love Boat, and I was, and Fantasy Island. Like I was a fan of those when I was a kid, but I had no idea what a TV producer did. Like I didn't know. So at the point when I auditioned, everyone was like, oh, you're going in to meet with Aaron Spelling. And I was like, that means nothing to me. Sorry, that carries no weight. And I remember being in his office and I was like, this dude's got a lot of money. Like, this is a really nice office. He had like, a Charlie's Angels pinball machine and all sorts of stuff. And I was like, this guy's doing it. And then after I booked the show, we all ended up going to the manor, his house, for some party. And that house was ridiculous.
This is before the show even airs?
Ridiculous. No, this was after the show we'd been going for a little while. That house though, like you watch these like old school nighttime soaps like Dallas and Dynasty and all those, they've got nothing on the life that he was living. Like he had, the entryway of his house was this massive 100-foot by 100-foot with like dual staircases that went up with like gold railing. And it was, the house was so big that I used to go over there and hang out with Tori and Randy, and Tori didn't even know what was in half the rooms. She's like, I've never even been in those rooms. And I was like, how do you live in a house and you have not been in all of the rooms? Like I can't. So then I was like, let's go. And like found, like back ways behind rooms and things like the bowels of the house. I found the hidden panels that you push that open, and because it's what I assumed everyone does. Like if you're in a house this big, you check it out. I wouldn't want to walk around at night by myself in this place and not know what's in behind every door.
At what point do you start making like serious money that can change your life?
So it wasn't that we were making a massive amount of money per episode at that time. Like when we get into money conversations with other people and you look at like the cast of Friends and the cast of Seinfeld,
where they all band together, $1 million an episode.
Right. They all played it together. They were really smart. We played it as every man for himself. So it wasn't the most lucrative, but what was lucrative was it was a 10-year job. So it was like, okay, even if I'm spending money, my accounts are still growing. Like I can't spend more than I'm making. And that's when it was like, oh, this is really cool. Like this is something amazing. It wasn't because we were making a massive amount of money, but when you would look at a season of the show for 13, we got to the point where we were doing like 35 4 episodes a season. Like it was ridiculous. They were like, oh, this is working well. Let's just keep making these things. And so at one point we had like 2 crews going, 2 directors, 2 scripts, and we would be doing them back to back. So I'd go from episode 19 to episode 20 in the same day, and I'd be shooting scenes from both of them.
Are you aware of what's happening in the storyline, or are you kind of just reading the script, perform, read script?
You're aware, but it was really, I give it up to the directors that we had. The directors were really good at knowing what was going on and making sure that we had a sense of what was going on, what had happened before the scene we were doing, what had happened in the episode before. Like they kept us kind of in the loop of what the complete story was, because there's no way we would have been able to like keep track of it otherwise. It was too much. It was too much work.
Why do television shows use different directors every episode?
On a show like 90210 or something like that, it is just for the pre-production of it. So while one episode is shooting, the next director is out finding locations, doing all that kind of stuff, and preparing to shoot. So they change hands. The shows that mainly use the same director are live audience shows. So like Friends, James Burrows directed most of those. And that's because the locations never changed. And if they needed one, they just built it. It was live audience. So they just built the set of, the bank or wherever they were supposed to be. And then the way those shot is they would rehearse Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, camera block on Thursday, and then shoot it on Friday. So they would the director didn't have like any sort of pre-production, any prep that he needed to do. He was doing it while they were rehearsing. Like, oh, this doesn't work. Let's rewrite this a little bit. Oh, hey, let's move it to here. Like, you spend the week doing that, kind of preparing for the show on Friday. A drama, you're shooting every day. It's a single camera. So you need time, like a film. You need time to go out and location scout, pick vehicles, cast background actors, cast guest stars, things like that. You need that time to do that.
Right.
Whereas the live audience ones, because you have those rehearsal days, directors could still be doing some prep stuff for the following episode on those days. Like, oh, we're only rehearsing from 9 to 11:30 on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So then after 11:30, I can go to casting. I can go and do all of those things and be prepping for the next episode.
What are you doing in that Brian time once filming stops?
I was doing a lot of music during that time.
Do you still do that now?
I do. Yeah. But music was I grew up in music. So that was my main hobby. As soon as we would wrap, I would get home. I had a studio at my house. Most of the people that I was working with were either living at my house at the time or lived close. And so it was like, I'd get there and everybody would already be over and they'd be playing pool. And it was like, I was a single guy. Like I just had an open door policy and my best friend lived with me. So it was just, the house was always full and it was great. It was great to come home to and have. Exhausting now. There's no way I could do it now. But at that age, 17 years old, 20 years old, I was all about it. That was fine.
Is your best friend another actor at that time?
No, he's a musician.
Oh.
He's in the Far Side. He's a rapper. So it was great at that point. I'd come home and it was like we were just doing music. And I had a studio. I had a lot of my studio equipment set up in my living room at one point. So literally you'd walk in the front door and it was all right there. And we were just like nonstop working on music all the time. Like we never, ever stopped, except when I had to go to work. And when I had to go to work, they were still making music. So I come home and it'd be like, oh, well, what have you been working on today? Oh, cool. And then I'd jump in and like we would, expand on it and grow the idea, or the idea was set and ready to go. So it was like, cool, let's start something new.
Are you appreciating the show at that time, or is it kind of like let's just go knock this out, get back to the music?
I think it was the latter at that point, because of my age. Like I wasn't at the age to fully appreciate things. I felt like this is normal. This is what people do. They have these jobs like this, and then you go do, this passion stuff when you're not working. So 90210 was the job. That was like, you go, that's the 9 to 5. That is like, got to go to set in the morning, go shoot my scenes. Am I done? Am I wrapped? Okay, cool. I'm going to go home. We're going to work on some music, maybe go to a club or something later on. And then I'll see you guys tomorrow morning, so that was sort of like the show became the grind for me. Whereas a lot of other people, that was their thing. They loved being there. I was like, I loved being there, but I had all of this other stuff going on also.
Right.
I'm a multitasker. Like, I'm not one to sit still. I have people that give me shit to this day because it's like, if I have time off, I'm not sitting on the couch watching TV. I'm in the backyard building something, or I'm in the studio recording something, or like, I cannot stop.
What are you building in the backyard?
The last thing I built was a pin thing for our rabbit. And it is big enough to house probably 20 rabbits.
Do you have a lot of animals?
We have one. We have 3 dogs, 2 guinea pigs, a rabbit, fish.
Chickens?
Had chickens. When I lived in Malibu, I built a chicken coop and I built a chicken coop, of course, that could house like 50 chickens, and I had 4. And they were just like, they had all of this space and they were like living it up. People came over and they were like, what are you doing? Like, why? Chickens don't need this kind of space. But I was like, no, they absolutely do. And then they need skylights just to make sure that it was ridiculous.
They need to see what time it is.
It was ridiculous. Yeah, totally. They need a stereo and power and lights, and they need a kitchen, right? Don't they need a refrigerator? Chickens need to put the eggs in when they lay them. So stupid.
Did the show ever feel like it was going to be canceled in the beginning when there wasn't much audience?
Oh, in the beginning, for sure. I thought it was just going to be a pilot and a few episodes, and then we'd peace out and go do something else. Like, I had no idea that 10 years later we would still be there.
So are you still going on other acting auditions? And
No, because we had signed a contract. When you do a show, you sign a contract for multiple years. So if it does well and gets picked up, you're in. They're not all of a sudden without their actors, because we've all moved on to other stuff. So they own you until the show's been canceled, at which point they go, okay, contract's done, you can go do other stuff, show's canceled, and then you're like, okay, free and clear, next thing.
Do you have a team around you too? Like agents?
I have an agent, I have a manager.
Everyone's good?
Everyone's really good. But it's been trial and error. Like, I've cycled through people, obviously, throughout my career, but now I have a team that I love. I'm very loyal to the people that are around me. So it's like, once I find that group, it's like, okay, let's all succeed together. Let's all, if I make money on something, we're all making money on something. Like, we're all going to succeed or fail in this together. This is a group effort. It's a group lift. It's not just me. Like, there's a ton of work that goes on behind the scenes with them for me to work. I mean, my manager people don't completely understand what a manager is, but by definition, a manager manages everything, and she handles she makes sure that I have, that I get in contact with people I need to, that the fittings are done, that I've got all the addresses and all the stuff, that all the paperwork is done, so I don't have to think about that stuff. I can literally just be working on a script, and then I show up on set. She handles all of the other stuff. She manages my career to make sure that all of the minutia, all the small pieces are working the way they're supposed to.
So many people fall victim to the Hollywood life and everything else. Are you paying attention to your peers to see who's doing that to make sure you don't fall victim to that?
I did when I was younger. I fell victim to some of it. I mean, I definitely look back on some of it and I go, man, why was I wasting money the way I was at that point? But it is what it is. I'm a huge believer in, it's like, you have to go through stuff. You have to struggle and fail to figure out what you don't want to do again. Like, if people ask me all the time, if you could go back in time and change something, what would you change? Honestly, I'd change nothing, because every single thing that I experienced led me to where I am today, led me to be the person that I am today. And I'm so, like, my confidence is through the roof, not in an egotistical way or anything. Like, I don't hold myself above anybody else, but I am completely confident in who I am, in my opinions, and I share them with people. And like, I feel that because I'm in that place, I can positively affect people, which feels amazing. It feels amazing to meet people and they go, hey, so I was listening to your podcast last season, or I heard you speak on this, and it changed the trajectory of my life because those words meant so much and they were the words that I needed to hear. And that's amazing because they're not words that I'm making up. They're words that I have heard from people, and they're all ideas. You know, none of the ideas that I have are new ideas. They're all a mishmash of things that I've learned and heard through my lifetime. I've been on this planet for 51 years. So I've experienced all of it. I've experienced the lows of things. I've experienced the difficulties of things. I've done things that haven't worked. I've done things that have worked. But I've learned along the way. So now at 51, I feel like, okay, I don't expect that I'm not going to fail at things. I don't expect that I am going to have difficult times. I welcome those times because I know that they lead to something. I know, like, oh, this has been really hard, or this didn't work well, but I know it's going to lead to something great. And I needed to go through that experience.
Who's been influential on you?
Everyone in one way or another. Absolutely every person that I've come across in my life. And a lot of them for reasons that I didn't see coming. Like, I think that's a trap that people sometimes can fall into, of like, oh, this is someone I look up to, so I'm going to model my life after theirs, because lives are so different. Like, I have this conversation all the time with people about astrology, and they're like, oh, I'm a Libra, I'm a Cancer, my traits are this. And it's like, those are your traits if you've never been around other people and you come out of the womb. Like, those are supposed to be things that you do, but you've been influenced by parents and by kids that you went to school with and by life. And so it changes those things. Like, you meet people and it's like, okay, you're a Cancer, but you are not as sensitive as some other Cancers, because your dad was a Gemini, and like, you've had these different people around you and these different experiences. So I kind of feel like, being influenced by people, I honestly feel the same way I do about acting in general. Like, I always tell people when they ask me, what would you suggest? Like, what is a good thing to do as an actor? And I always tell people, like, study with as many people as you possibly can. Learn as many different techniques and strategies and things until you find what works the best for you. I honestly don't believe that just one technique or one looking up to one person is enough, because we're all individual people. So it's like, you get these little, like, light bulb moments and pearls of wisdom from different people. And then you put them all together and you go, ooh, I liked this one. This one worked really well, but this one from over here works really well. You find all of the things that, because you're a whole person, you're influenced in so many different ways. So you never know where those are going to come from. And somebody that you look up to, I'm sure has had a completely different upbringing than you have. So they say little things and you go, hey, that's really cool. I'm glad I heard that. But then they say a bunch of other stuff where you're like, that doesn't apply to me at all.
Right.
It just doesn't work with my life. And that's not a bad thing. That's just reality. That's just the way it works.
It's smart because you have to see what actually applies to you.
You have to. Yeah. You try and you fail. you try some things that somebody else told you they did, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. Yeah, I've tried things a million times that someone's like, oh, you should try, the apple cider vinegar cleanse, or you hear things all the time. And then you try them and you go, not for me. I'm so glad it worked for you. Not for me. Like, it literally did nothing for me.
Let's say you have a role that you really want.
Mm-hmm.
There's a character you need to create. What's your process for how you figure that out?
It honestly depends on the role. I mean, I try to find as much connection to my own life as possible, just because it helps me emotionally connect with different things. But it's fun. I mean, at the same time, like, I've played characters that were I wouldn't say the exact opposite of me, but they were me if I had made all the wrong choices in a situation and handled things in the worst possible way. So then in that case, it's fun because I get to
do what you wouldn't.
Do what I wouldn't have done, and somehow as a character feel justified in doing them and justified in the choices that the character is making. Whether they're actual choices I would make or not, I'm finding a way to make a living, breathing person that absolutely justifies those choices.
Do you work with a coach or anything?
I used to. I've worked with a bunch of them. The last coach that I worked with was a guy by the name of Larry Moss, who is fantastic. And he was really good at breaking down a script and creating a character. Like, really helping you look through it all and figure out not just what the lines are, but what is in between the lines. Like, what makes the character say the things that he says. So when I'm studying a scene, I'm not just learning the words that are on the page. I'm trying to figure out why my character is saying what they're saying based on what other characters are saying in scenes, based on who they are, based on what they've heard, based on what happened prior to this situation. If somebody rubbed them the wrong way, then if they're having a conversation with that person again, that shit is still in their mind. That's still in their present. That's still there. So he really helped me figure out how to do that. So now when I'm working on scenes, it is second nature for me to break them down that way. Like, it's not about the words. A lot of times, honestly, I'll paraphrase a lot of the words that are in scenes because they just feel like they work better. As I'm developing these characters and these things, they just work better. It makes more sense. Certain characters, you don't do that. Like when I did the Terminator show, I played a resistance fighter from the future. And so everything was very technical. It was very army based. It was very military. And I don't speak that way at all.
So are you studying other shows?
I was lucky with that one because I was already a big fan of the Terminator franchise. So I was like, oh, this is badass. Like when I auditioned for it, I was like, I got to get this one. Like this is hands down, I want to do this. And nailed it. And it felt great. But I do study, it is important to study other people. So like you hear about actors going on ride-alongs with police or sitting in a courtroom watching the way it goes down because you want to learn the minutia of it to the point where you're not thinking about it, where you've got to play a character that is a trained police officer. A police officer has been training for years in what it is they do, in the way they question someone, in the way they physically move someone, in the way they spread their legs apart and they cuff them. There's got to be these things that are second nature. I've never studied any of those things. I'm not a cop. I'm not, I've never worked in a doctor's office. So I need to watch people that do that and go, okay. And it's a crash course in like, okay, what is your thinking behind doing that? Like, why do you do that? What is that? How does your mind work? Like what's the first thing you're thinking when you're walking in a room and somebody's sitting there? And those are important questions to ask because whether the lines are written that way or not, you still want to be in the mindset of that. So even if the first line doesn't match that, the first thought is still that. So you're still walking in the room with the same intention. You may be saying something different, but the intention is always the same. You're always doing the same thing in the other room before you walk into this room. So it's like, it's all about finding those things if you're going to make a believable character.
Who comes to mind as an incredible actor to you?
Oh, Anthony Hopkins. God, there's so many. Robert Downey Jr., Cillian Murphy, Joaquin Phoenix is doing just great stuff now. Matt Damon. I mean, Tom Hanks. It's kind of an endless list. It depends on what it is, the genre that you're into. Tom Cruise is a phenomenal actor. He has mastered the type of movie that he's making. Like he is a filmmaker, and he knows the absolute best way to entertain people in a theater with that genre of film. Maverick is hands down one of the best movies. I watched that movie, and I remember leaving the theater and going, okay, I loved the first Top Gun, but I was like, I never understood how difficult of a job that was, being a fighter pilot, until I watched that. And then you're like, oh, now the levels of, what can go wrong, they're at a 10 compared to they were at a 5 in the first one. I was like, oh, this movie's fun. Oh yeah, they're all, they're flying planes and rolling them around and doing stuff. You watch this one and you go, oh man, the intensity of that, like I get it. And that was a situation where they either do it perfectly or they die. And I got that 1,000%. So he's fantastic at that. And I think there are certain people within genres that are fantastic at those genres. And then you have some of the actors that can cross through all of them. You've got, oh my God, what is his name?
What film?
Daniel Day-Lewis, who literally can do anything.
Lincoln.
You can put him in like a period piece like that, or you can put him in Gangs of New York, or you can put him in My Left Foot, or you can put him in all these things, and it's like he just figures out how to shine in all of them and how to 1,000% inhabit a character to the point where you're watching and you're like, that's not an actor. Like that is, I'm watching a documentary on someone's life. He's fantastic.
Are there any directors that you've worked with that come to mind where you really learned a lot about their style and how it improved you as an actor?
Tony Scott. I got to work with him on Domino with like Christopher Walken and Mickey Rourke and Lucy Liu. It was Keira Knightley. It was such a great experience. But he and his brother Ridley come from art. They're painters. Like if you watch the opening of any of their things, scot-free, the match that lights, and then there's the guy running and he turns into an eagle and he's like flying. That's hand painted by them. They're artists. They know how to paint to that.
Yeah, that's okay though.
They know how to paint with a camera. Like that is their medium. That's what they've figured out. I've never ever in my life been on a set where he's painting and he hires actors that can do the job so he doesn't have to direct actors. He would just go, okay, so you guys start here. You'll end up around this spot. You'll kind of do the scene. You'll do the thing. You'll get in your cars and then you'll drive out. Meanwhile, he's got like 9 cameras hidden in spots running, all sorts of crazy stuff, and he's adding dyes to the water when he's developing the film to like color. He's not doing anything. He wasn't doing anything with computers. It was all done in the moment. Like it was all, when we did effects of like, we had a Winnebago that had to roll over at one point, and he did it practically instead of in CG and computer. Like, oh, you just have They did a whole thing where they wrapped a cable around a Winnebago, put it on a crane, pulled it, and the cable unwound, and it unwound this thing, and then it landed on the roof of itself. Like the coolest shit ever. Like there was, Edgar had to throw a TV through a guy's windshield, but the car was traveling, so it was extremely dangerous because it was a real TV. It was a tube television. And so they set it up with this whole pulley system attached to a fence 50 yards away, where one end of the pulley was attached to the bumper of the car. It went through, ran up to a crane, came down, was attached to the TV. So as the car moved, the TV would move also. So it would time out the TV dropping perfectly on the windshield of the car because that's the way it was lined up. So he didn't, as an actor, didn't have to worry about where am I throwing. He could just like let go of it, and the crane did all the rest of the work. It was amazing. It was such a crash course in the concept of getting the pieces visually that you want and trusting that you have these actors that are going to perform for you well. And that's why he always had the same actors. He always had Denzel Washington, Mickey Rourke, Christopher Walken was in all of his stuff. Like because he knew that he had people that he could totally trust that would show up and do it.
The art of filmmaking is so special.
It's so special. It's so amazing. And then you do these pieces where it's not about that at all. They're these very sort of internalized character pieces. And so then you've got the directors that are really good at working with actors and helping them through it and helping them find it. And I always tell people, it's tough shooting a script out of order to keep track of what's going on, because when people watch this, it's going to be edited together the way the script is, and it's a story. And so if the scene that you have following this one isn't at the same level emotionally, it's noticeable. It's like, wait, you were just running for your life in that scene, and now all of a sudden you're like sitting on a couch drinking a beer and like relaxed in this one. It doesn't make any sense. It's not, you've taken me out of the story of it. A good director makes sure that the story is always intact, and that that the actors are always aware of where in the story this scene takes place. So it's not just a scene. People, when you're starting off and you only have a scene in a movie, you want to show up and you like shine in your one scene. Obviously, you want to stand out and be recognizable. When you're shooting a whole film, you have 80 scenes. Like, okay, let me like not think so much scene by scene and instead the entire story. So it's a really interesting process, and directors are so underrated and underconsidered in the success of a film because they're not on camera. It's actors are on camera, and so when something sucks, or when something shines, it's like, oh, the acting was phenomenal. And it's like, dude, the acting was phenomenal because the filmmaker was phenomenal.
And if the movie sucks, is that because the director didn't do it properly?
Well, there's so many things that go into it. There's the director, there's the editor afterwards,
right.
There's sound mixer, there's the score. When you're on set, it's such a small piece of the total thing. So you really learn as an actor, I think, and I'm still learning this. You want to make sure that a director has all of the pieces that they can have on camera. So then when they're in post making a movie, they've got those. So you want to make sure that the performance is there. You want to make sure that it all works. So then they can create all the magic afterwards. But you have no control over that. So sometimes you'll have a great script and you'll go and you'll shoot something, and then you'll go to the screening of it and you're like, oh, golly, how did that go so bad? But there are so many hands involved in the process of it. Again, you're such a small part. And it's got to be hard for like a massive A-list film actor, because there's so much riding on them being in something that when the finished product isn't amazing, they're the ones that are looked at in a negative way. They're the ones that are blamed for it for the most part.
That's what we just saw with
moviegoers. They're sitting back going, oh, you know, the last Joker that came out, you know, it was like Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga. I read tons of stuff about them constantly of the downfall of the film. I enjoyed the movie. I thought if I went to the theater expecting the sequel from the first one that I saw, I'd be disappointed because it wasn't that. It's an origin story of this guy. So that there are many different iterations of that. And part of the story was that you had to see the second one in that way to really understand how he wasn't the Joker after all. Like, he was named the Joker and that was the name of the movie, but he wasn't that guy. Like, he seemed like he could have been that guy, and he started a movement, but then it ended right there. It had to continue on with something else, which is then you see the other iterations of these Batman movies and Heath Ledger is the Joker, and you go, oh, okay. This is what had to happen to lead to this. So as a filmmaker and a lover of the art, I really enjoyed it. I thought I thought Lady Gaga and Joaquin did a fantastic job. I thought I enjoyed the whole film. The musical pieces sometimes got a little it's a little much, but who's to say? It's the telling of, it was his experience, you know, living in an insane asylum. It's who knows how much of that you put to music, and who really knows? Like, that's how do you answer that question unless you speak to somebody that is in that person's shoes?
I haven't seen that. I just saw Red One, which had so
and
many
so
negative reviews. I wasn't planning on seeing it just because I'm not a musical
spoiler
guy.
alerted the entire thing. I spoiled all of it.
But Red One just did that with The Rock, and everyone's like, "Is The Rock's career over?" But the movie wasn't bad. It was supposed to go on Amazon, but then they did the theater release, so he got bigger budget, and then everyone's just complaining like
Right.
The Rock didn't deserve that much.
So The Rock is a tough one because he is, he does a very specific genre of film.
Super action hero.
So that's what you expect. He's not an actor that takes on different characters. And I saw somebody had posted a photo of him in 4 different movies, and he literally is wearing the same wardrobe. Like, it is like the characters are so similar.
I love him.
You look at the pictures and you're like, oh, those are 4 stills from the same thing, right? And it's like, nope, they're 4 completely different movies. But yeah, I love him. I appreciate that because he fills the space of that genre of the same way like Schwarzenegger did at that point. Schwarzenegger took much more of a career leap with projects, and he did comedies and he did things that were outside of the box for him that weren't quite as expected, like, you know, Twins with Danny DeVito and things like that. Like,
when that came out, were you excited to see it?
I was excited just because it was like, you're kidding me. Like, he's doing a straight comedy with Danny DeVito. Like, okay, that's, you know, I was interested for sure.
Right.
I think he had a really fun career to watch. And Dwayne is going to go down as an amazing career to watch also. You got to give it up to that guy. Like, he was a wrestler, and he is now like the biggest action movie star on the planet. And you can take all the pictures that you want of him being the same character. It doesn't matter. Like, people are just fine with him being that guy.
Why do films and TV shows do the most expensive shots in the beginning of filming? Is that the budget thing?
I don't know. I've never heard that before. I didn't know that they do all the most expensive ones first. Normally, it is they go and they location scout, and then they you come up with a shooting schedule based on that, on
Travel expenses.
availability of actors, of certain locations, when is a good time to shoot there, when it's less populated, when it's not like a vacation time in Hawaii. You don't want to shoot in Hawaii when literally everybody's there on vacation because it's the best time of year. You want to be there during the off seasons when it's easy to shoot and there's availability for hotel rooms and stuff like that. It's logistically, to travel is a massive undertaking. You've got to think that if you have a crew that comes out of Los Angeles or Atlanta or wherever it is, but they're all over the world, you have to travel everybody there. You have to put them up in a hotel. You have to feed them. There's the logistics of doing it. Massive. It's one of the reasons why so little shoots in New York, because logistically it's a nightmare in Manhattan to park a bunch of trailers and all that, take over city blocks to use, some like little restaurant or cafe or pizza spot for. It's a lot. So much planning has to go into that. So it's easier to go to Vancouver and they'll build on a street that looks just like this one in New York. And you shoot it all there because you have complete control of all of it.
Do you have any upcoming projects that you're really excited about?
I have like 3 films coming out this year. It's a really interesting time in our business. You would think with all of the different streamers available that I'd be busier than I've ever been in my life. But because there are so many places now,
The film?
Well, there's so many shows. There's so many places to show television shows. I go on Apple TV and it's like I have a million different places to be watching things. Most people don't want to spend money for an actor like me in things. They would rather get a bunch of unknowns and they can have 50 of them instead of 5 me's on this. So it's like, it's much more, the work is much more few and far between, but it's okay. I'm getting into all sorts of other stuff that I never thought I would be getting into. But at 51, it's like, it makes sense. I'm tired of being an actor for hire. Like I want control of my own stuff, and I have tech things that I'm doing, and I have tons of business things that I'm doing. So acting is kind of like, I do it because I love doing it, but I have all of this other stuff that is now, all these other plates that I'm spinning and things that I'm doing, that those are now the things that are my main source of income.
Are they still in the filmmaking world?
Not all of them. No. Some of them are, sure. And then some of them are not at all. And you'd be surprised to hear what those are. I can't talk about them because they're still I'm still working on things. So,
do those come out this year or 2025?
Some of them are much more long game, and then some of them are, they are like time is of the essence with things. So we're trying to get them happening as soon as possible before somebody else does.
You just did a film with Sharna.
I did. Yeah.
How was that?
Yeah, that was the 3 Pigs one. That was the horror film. It was amazing. Sharna was great. It was super fun.
She was telling me about her scenes.
Dude, it was super.
Were you there during those?
I was there during her. So we didn't work together at all in the film. And her scenes were much more emotionally heavy than mine were. Like I played the sheriff in this small town. So my stuff was much more procedural. Her stuff was much more emotional. So she was like, she really had to dive in and do some stuff. And she did so good. Like I'm involved in the post-production on it, and I'm super excited to get into the editing room and start seeing what she did and what everyone did. Because it's a super fun movie.
What does the editing room look like?
This.
Lots of screens.
No, usually you'll have your computer screen and then you'll have one big one that you're playing.
That's connected and you're just watching.
That's your playback.
And those are the dailies?
So the dailies are loaded in. So an editor does a rough assembly of a film. They go through all the dailies. When you're on set, you're marking like, I really like take 2, so we'll mark that one. So then the editor knows, okay, use take 2. Like try and figure that out. Doing a general assembly is a filmmaker. You don't want to be doing that because that is just like this laborious, tedious, importing all of the stuff that's been shot, digitizing it, putting it all in order of the story and all that kind of stuff. I get in with an editor at the point when it's been assembled. So now it's like, okay, let's start going scene by scene and making sure that we have the best moments of all the actors, that we create everything that we want out of this scene, all the tension, all of the stuff. And then you're slowly doing that from scene to scene to scene. So you're kind of like, okay, I'm 4 scenes into the movie. I've done the first quarter of it. Like, like you can sit down and watch the first quarter and go, okay, that's really cool. And then you get the whole thing done and then it's picture lock. And then it goes on to all of the
scoring,
sound,
CGI,
scoring, effects, color correction, all sorts of stuff. So the process is massive.
Do you like being part of that?
I love being a part of that because that's super fun for me. Like now I'm confident enough on a set that I can pretty much tell like whether something worked or not for me. So then I get in and it's all about like, I want to make sure that everybody shines, that everybody is the best they can be in a scene. Like not just me. I'm not just looking out for myself going, fuck everybody else. I want to make sure that my stuff is good. Like I love the idea because I hated when I was a young actor doing things and then the post-production is done horribly. As an actor, there is nothing more deflating than busting your ass and seeing it come together and realizing like it's an editor just cut from one line to the next, to the next, to the next. Didn't look for any of the magic moments, any of the things, none of the stillness that happens between lines. Like there was no acting in it. It was just like saying the lines in the scene and getting to the end. And the editor's like, cool, got all the lines, all the movements matched, all the stuff. And it's like they cut out all of the spark and the magic and the work that actors put in. So I love finding those moments. So when actors watch scenes back, they're proud of the choices they made. And then they can from there decide, okay, next thing I do, I want to do something a little different. That didn't work as well as I wanted it to. And that was, and they know like everything, we gave it everything we had in editing. That's the absolute best of what we could have done with the moments that you had. Then you feel like, okay, cool. Now I have something to work from compared to, I know I did a lot more than what's on camera right now. And so I don't have anything to judge. Like where do I go for, did the stuff that I did actually work and they just didn't use it? Did it not? Like, I don't know.
So many of the right people have to be in the right position to make a movie have that lightning in a bottle.
Yeah. So when we did Sarah Connor Chronicles on Fox, everybody that was involved, everyone was hitting on all cylinders. Like it was so magical.
Did it feel it while you're in the moment?
You could feel it.
Oh, that's so cool.
You could feel it when you were on set. Like it was just, everything was working. All of the guest actors that we had in were just top-notch people. Everyone, even people that would have like one line in a liquor store, somebody that worked behind the counter, they were great. So it was amazing to be working and to feel like it's all working. Like because I have a very sensitive bullshit meter when I'm on set. And if things aren't working, like right away, I'm like, oh, that's not working. Like, and it starts driving me crazy. It just eats at me. And I didn't have that at all on the set of Sarah Connor.
As an actor, when you watch, like you said, when you watch that first playback and you don't feel like the editor did the right selection, are you kind of just deflated? Like, I don't want to promote this movie. I don't want anyone to, that's not the best take that I did.
For sure. Yeah. Or it's just not like, it's not, it's not good. I'm not excited. I didn't finish watching it and feel excited by it and feel like, oh my God, I can't wait for other people to see this.
Right.
You kind of feel like, okay, it's done. Like, I honestly want this to come and go and hope that the next thing is better.
What about when you're reading a script? Can you tell a good script from a great script?
You can, but it doesn't, a good script doesn't necessarily mean a good movie.
Does a great script mean a good movie?
No, you never know. You never, ever know. Like, I've read terrible scripts and they've turned out to be really good movies. And then I've read really good scripts and they've turned out to be terrible movies. Like, you don't, and that's the problem with having so many people involved in the process.
Right.
You don't know. Like, you have no, you can only hope that you have a high enough position, like you're a producer also or something like that, where you can be involved in all of those things. So you can like be watching people's reels and tapes and seeing other work the editor's done and other work that the composer has done as far as scores. And you can, the best you possibly can, like make sure that you've got capable people in those positions doing those jobs. But you never know. You never know until it's done. And the worst is when you have a really bad editor and then composer, because it's like, okay, the editing's terrible, plus this composer is giving away literally everything that's supposed to be like unfolding in the script or in the film. I'm like 10 steps ahead of what is supposed to be a surprise for people. That's so frustrating. It's so frustrating.
Do you have a favorite show?
Yellowstone is pretty good right now.
Did you watch the finale?
I haven't watched it yet.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah. So good. And I just started watching Lioness.
Yeah. I haven't watched that. I have started watching Landman.
We were going to start that last night, but we started Lioness
instead. It's one or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Taylor Sheridan's doing great stuff.
I watched the intro.
It's like, fuck, that dude right now is killing him.
I watched the intro. I'm like, this feels like Yellowstone. And it says created by Tyler Sheridan.
Same thing with Landman. You'll watch it and you'll go, oh, dude, this guy's doing it all.
How does he have the time?
I don't know. I have no idea. I assume that because he's been in the business for a long time.
And then Yellowstone just took off.
So I think it hit. And then he was like, oh, I'm going to ride this wave as long as I can. Like, I'm going to do all this stuff because I'm doing it well right now. It's hitting for me. It's all working. So I'm going to do this until this ride is over because I've been on the ride for a long time where it wasn't working. So he's taking full advantage.
Is there anyone in the business that you knew had that spark in them and then it just took off?
Zendaya, I saw her doing stuff early and I was like, she's a really smart individual. And like, I really enjoy watching her because she's just enjoyable to watch. And I think now she's making really interesting choices. But I mean, there are people that have come up that I did not see coming. Like if anybody had told me at a young age that Zac Efron would be as good of an actor as he is now, I would have been like, no way.
You see Iron Claw?
No, I haven't seen it. But I'd be like, you've lost your mind. There's no way. And cut to, he's killing it. He's killing it right now. And he was a super nice kid. I haven't seen him in years, but I'm super happy for him. I'm really happy for is Robert Downey Jr. I'm really happy to see the success he had at a younger age. I was always a massive fan of him from like Chaplin and then for him to struggle as much as he did with his sobriety and then have a resurgence the way he has and be like just bigger and better than he ever was before. That dude deserves it. Like he's so passionate about the work that he does. But he's so equally passionate about involving the other people that are around him in it as much as he is. Like I know he was a big part of when they were doing all the MCU things. You know, he had he's part owner of Marvel itself because when they did the first Iron Man, Marvel was a really small company, and that was one of the ways that they got him in, from what I've heard. And he played a big role in making sure that all the other kids that were in all the other things when they were doing the event, that it wasn't every man for himself. It was equal. We're all going to share in this together. And he changed their lives for sure. He played a huge part. I mean, Marvel absolutely changed their lives, but he played a big part in that.
Was Iron Man the first of his like redemption role?
It was. It seems like it, yeah.
Or at least that was the one that really took off.
Well, it took off in such a. I mean, it took off for Marvel. Like that was, Marvel was they were just like a production company, and they were working with Sony, and they were like
DC was it for the longest time.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And then Marvel, Sony did like the Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire. So like Marvel just played this kind of behind the scenes sort of role because it came from Stan Lee and, and all of that. And then Iron Man was the first like, oh no, this is a real, like we're going to do it all on our own. And they did it so successfully.
When you did Special Forces.
Yeah.
Did you like that experience?
So stupid. So I watched the first season of it.
When they had less budget, less craziness.
But I watched it with Sharna, and it was people that I knew, and they did it in Jordan, in the desert, in the heat. And we got to the end of it, and I was like, I want to do that. And Sharna was like, are you out of your fucking mind? And I was like, I'm totally out of my mind. Like, I want to, for me, coming out of the neurological stuff, I was late 40s, or no, mid 40s. And I was at the age where it's like I was dealing with like memory things and stuff. And, I wasn't sure how much of it I could chalk up to age or how much I could chalk up to the neurological stuff. So it was kind of like you're constantly on this mission of trying to find what is what, and decipher between the two so you can work more on the one or clear up whatever. So Special Forces for me was like, I want to see what I'm still capable of, because when I first started rehabbing, I had lost all of my balance and coordination. I've always been really coordinated and had amazing balance through my lifetime.
It was a 4-year recovery?
4.5 year. Yeah. It was, I could barely say one word every 30 seconds. I shuffled like I was 90. Like it was horrible. I had to learn how to like walk stairs again and speak. It was a whole thing. It was, I compare it to like a computer. If you turn it off and then you reset it, it's like my brain and my body were completely disconnected. So I had to reconnect what I thought in my brain to what I wanted my body to do. And it takes time. It's all repetitive. You have to keep doing stuff until your brain starts remapping how to do it. So it's not relearning things. It's remembering how to do things. So your brain starts reconnecting the pathways to do that. So that's why I went and did Special Forces. We were already doing the podcast at that point on iHeart. And we were at the iHeart Music Awards, which was on Fox. And Special Forces is on Fox. So I was there, and my buddy who runs the network, I saw him and we were talking, and I was like, oh, hey, by the way, so I want to do season 2 of Special Forces. And he was like, get out of here. And all of a sudden he had the producer from the show walk down the stairs, and she was like, hey, you want to do the show? And I was like, yeah. She was like, well, reach out to your people on Monday. I was like, okay. Like it that fast. And within like a week's time, I was one of the first people signed up for season 2 of the show. So it is, you watch the show and you go, oh, that seems really fun. Like all of the tasks and the things you have to do, and the kind of obstacle stuff, and climb along this or zip line from this to this, or do, those were easy. Like I could have done, because it was only 8 days. I could have done those for 8 days, because even if you couldn't do them, it's not like if you failed on those, you're off the show. You could fail at all of them and still make it through the whole show and be there. but it is a fully immersive from second 1 to second 100 at the end of the whole thing. You are living in barracks. You are yelled at the whole time. It's military lifestyle. And it's exhausting and it's a lot. From the very first night we were in the barracks, they made us work out at like 1:00 in the morning, carrying like 20-pound rocks and all this stuff. I was so sore the next day that I really realized at that point, like, why professional athletes retire at a certain age, because your body just does not recover the same way. Like JoJo, she'd be sore, and then an hour later she was like, I'm good, and I was like, I couldn't walk a stair. And it got to the point where I was like, I'm so sore, I'm going to end up hurting myself on these challenges because my body feels the way it does. So at that point I was like, I've got to bow. Like, there's no reason to keep doing it, because I don't want to hurt myself doing this show. I don't want to hurt myself because my body physically can't do the things that I know I'm capable of doing. Like, I can do this stuff. I can repel things. I can jump out of things. I can carry heavy things. I can do those things. That's just mind over matter. And I knew I was in the mindset of being able to do it. I just recovered from my neurological thing for 4.5 years. I was like, fuck, I can do anything at this. If
Were
I
you
can
back
make
to
it
100%?
Pretty much. Yeah. I was like, if I can live through that, because at that, I couldn't read. I couldn't write. I couldn't walk. I couldn't play music. I couldn't do any of the things that made me me. So it was terrifying, because at a certain point you're going, oh my God, who am I? If I don't recover from this, who the fuck am I going to be? Like, how am I going to continue making money and surviving? Like, all I've known my whole life is what I'm good at and what I do. You learn the things that you're good at, that you really enjoy, that you're passionate about doing. Other things you don't ever even consider, like, I'm going to have to work in a bank, or my brain never ever thought of those things until all of a sudden it's like, fuck, maybe I should be thinking about like a plan B if I can't fully walk and I can't remember things and I can't read and I can't act anymore and I can't do, I'm not like quick-witted enough to do comedy and do the stuff that I do. Like, I'm going to have to think of some other things. And then you start reeling from that of like, oh my God, I'm in my 40s now. Like, how I have to, like, it's back to the drawing board. Like, I have to start from scratch. I have to figure out who Brian 2.0 is going to be, because the first one, that dude's gone. So coming back out of that was amazing. And I genuinely felt like I'm good. Like, that's why anybody with criticism, anybody with like any obstacles that I'm up against, like, I'll be okay. I'll be fine. Like, it's going to suck. I've been through suck. Like, I came out of the back end of that, so I'm not, nothing to me feels like it is an end all be all for me. I feel like I can recover from things.
Did they ever find out the cause of it?
Dietary and stress, I think, is kind of so in Western medicine, no. I was seeing the top neurologist at Cedars. We did over 190 blood tests. I had MRIs, I had CAT scans. There was no physical reason why, but it's the same thing as, like, they still can't determine what causes ulcers, or there are these unknowns where it's like, we then have to start looking at Eastern medicine and thinking like, okay, what within my energy and my body and internal inflammation and things do I need to start looking at changing to correct this? And it became that I had a lifetime of internal inflammation from dietary things that I'm not necessarily allergic to, but my body didn't do well with. And when you just continue to compound, it just builds up. And it got to the point where my body was like, I I can't handle anything else that you throw on the plate for me. And I was still going through a lot of stressful stuff, and I wasn't handling my marriage very well at that point. So it was just like, it was a buildup of stuff.
What do you stay away from diet-wise now?
I don't stay away from anything, but I eat things in moderation. Like I try to not eat a lot of breads, a lot of gluten. I try to not eat a lot of dairy. So then if I'm somewhere and it smells or looks amazing, I can.
So it's worth
like,
it.
It's my one time this week. Like I'm going to have that fucking that cheese fondue because that looks delicious. And I'm going to dip the bread, the croutons in it. Like fuck diet. Like this is, I'm going to do what I want to do because it's going to taste amazing and I'm going to feel good in the moment. I may feel terrible about it 2 hours later, but in the moment, I'm going to feel great.
What a recovery, though.
What a recovery. Yeah.
Are you doing anything for the holidays?
4 young kids at the house. I mean,
do you have all the gifts and everything?
Yes. So I did all of my shopping in November.
Oh, great.
I did it in November just so I wouldn't have to deal with malls and all this stuff now. So all the shopping was done then. So now we just look forward to the day. Cash and Ian are going to come over on Christmas Eve, which is the day that we have Noah, Bodie, and Journey, the kids that I share with Megan. She has them for actual Christmas Day, so we alternate Christmas Eve day and Christmas Day. Did the same thing with Cash and his mom when he was younger. So he'll be coming over with Ian on Christmas Eve. We'll do like a dinner, and presents and all that kind of stuff, and we'll sort of treat that like our Christmas Day. And then Christmas morning, we'll do with just Sharna and I and Zane.
Do you have any presents that you're really looking forward to giving them?
Yeah. So Cash's present is badass. It's awesome. All the kids are gonna love their presents. So we really we took a cue from Randy Spelling and like really went for the more minimal Christmas. We used to do, you'd look under the tree and the kids would like compare, I've got 15. Well, I've got 16. Well, why do you have 16 and I only have 15? It was like, it became this ridiculous just gift thing. And everybody would rip things open for like 5 minutes and then Christmas was over. And they'd play with like 2 things. And then 6 months later, they'd find something in their closet and they'd go, hey, I've got a boomerang. And it's like, yeah, we got you that for Christmas last year. So we started with Randy this thing where we get up Christmas morning, we open a couple gifts, then we go put on either like bathrobes or pajamas or whatever, and then we go for a walk. We make breakfast. And then we go back and we open more stuff, put it together, put batteries in it, do whatever, and then they play with that for the next hour. So Christmas Day becomes a full day thing. By the end of Christmas Day last year, we hadn't opened all of our presents.
Oh, wow.
But it was amazing because the kids played with everything that they got and they loved it. And it meant so much more. So this year, we've really trimmed down presents. The kids, on their Santa list, they had one thing, just one. Like, think of the one thing you really want Santa to get you. And then for us, it was 2 things. So it's 3 presents total for each of them. But they're all presents that they really put care and time into thinking like, oh, what do I want? Like, what would mean the most to me?
Right.
So it's exciting now that they're going to get things that I know they're going to be excited about. And they're looking forward to it because they're like, I only had 2 things on my list, so I'm going to get those things,
Do you try instilling any traditions too of like, we're going to watch Home Alone every year?
We did. The Grinch was one.
With Jim Carrey?
The old one, the one with Jim Carrey now we watch even the newer one, the one that Benedict Cumberbatch did.
Uh-huh.
The animated one. So we'll do that, but I mean mainly it's we really love decorating our house. So it's just we have the fireplaces going and we have Christmas music playing. And then it's like bedtime because it's Christmas morning tomorrow and Santa's going to come and it's honestly the fun of keeping like the magic of Christmas alive is the most fun.
Yeah.
It's way I used to think Christmas was super fun when I was a kid. Being an adult, it's way more fun.
See the look on their
because
faces.
Just the whole thing. It's like I'm the one that keeps the magic of that alive. Like it's our responsibility. And then as kids get older and they don't believe in Santa anymore, it's like, cool. So do you want to then be part of the magic of making sure that your younger brother or sister believes still? And then they love it. It's like, they come up with the ideas of like the snow coming out of the chimney and the footprints and the things. And it's like everybody's in on it. And then you see the wonder and the magic on the young kids' faces when they see it all and they experience it. And that means the most for sure.
Well, do we have a release date for the horror movie with Sharna?
No, it'll be 2025. I'm assuming it'll be sometime around like Halloween. End of summer, Halloween, but I'm not for sure. I'll let you know.
Please. Cool. Guys, go subscribe to
Awesome.
Oldish. Brian's podcast can be linked down below
On YouTube.
on YouTube.
Yeah,
Thanks for making the time.
of course.
It's been so
Dude,
cool.
thank you for having me.
Cool.
I appreciate it.
Lightweights out. That was so good.
Awesome.
Thank you.